Thanks for reading the Bible with me. We are finally in Luke 24, working our way through the book of Luke. We are in the final chapter, and I'm just going to dive in. We're just going to read the first 12 chapters so we can savor this for a few days. On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. While they were wondering about this, suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground, but the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He's not here, he's risen. Remember how he told you while he was still with you in Galilee? The Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men, be crucified, and on the third day be raised again." Then they remembered his words. When they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to the others. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the others with them who told this to the apostles, but they did not believe the women because their words seemed to them like nonsense. Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. Bending over, he saw the strips of linen lying by themselves, and he went away wondering to himself what happened. The Sabbath came and went. I doubt anybody slept much. So it's not hard to imagine that these faithful women assembled as the Sabbath ends with the first light of dawn. If I had to guess, I'd assume the spices and ointments were kept at Joanna's house. We know her husband had an influential position, so their house would have been a secure place to keep costly things like burial spices. In their culture, women rarely had influence or importance. They weren't even considered reliable witnesses in court. Jesus had spoken with them as equals, had valued them, and given them respect. Fear that they might be guilty by association with him could not prevent them from honoring him with a proper burial. Joseph's tomb would have been more like a cave, with carved-out benches for the corpse to rest on. It would be sealed by rolling a massive stone across the entryway. They'd followed Joseph there and watched him lay Jesus' body inside, so they knew exactly where to go. Luke tells us that when they arrived, the stone was already rolled away from the entrance. I'm sure they wondered who had already come to begin the burial preparations. Perhaps Joseph? Their curiosity would have quickly turned to alarm when they stepped into the tomb and found it empty. Had someone added insult to injury by stealing the body? But before they could begin to speculate, the tomb was full of blinding light. The way Luke recalls this part of the story, there were 2 men from whom the light came, and the women just hit the ground in terror. The men, whom we can only assume are some kind of angels, tell them not to look for living people in tombs. I love that. And then, in case they are still a little uncertain, the angels say, "He's not here. He's risen. He did tell you this was going to happen." And as they speak, the women recall Jesus' words and finally understand what he had told them over and over. He had said he would be handed over to evil people. He'd be crucified. And on the third day, he'd be raised from the dead. Just because it didn't really make sense to them didn't mean he hadn't said it, and as it begins to make sense, they run back inside the city to find the 11 remaining disciples. Like I said, Jesus treated these women as intelligent equals, but the disciples were still stuck in a culture that assumed women were too emotional to be reliable witnesses. So they just think the women must be having some kind of grief-induced hallucination. Peter, have I mentioned I love this guy, isn't prepared to totally write off the women's story. He runs to the tomb, finds it open and empty, and the linen used to wrap the body lying there. Unlike the women who got an angelic explanation, he's not connecting the dots, so as he leaves, he's racking his brain to imagine what might have happened. And there's more next time. See ya. Bye.